view of the majority of investors that I have spoken to recently, notwithstanding the last couple of days of market fall, has been that 2024 is a done deal. PM Modi is coming back, although with a slightly lower majority. I have read a very fascinating book recently, and I think you can see this book. Uh, it's called Modi, The Challenges of 2024. This book brings a fabulous job, like does a fabulous job of putting 2024 in perspective. This book is written by Mr. Minhaz Merchant, who is with us. He is not only one of the smartest political analysts that I have come across, but he also has a very strong grasp on economics, geopolitics, on the cultural and social milieu. I think it's a very great combination to analyze the political situation in the country. I had requested him for a fireside chat, and he agreed, luckily. So, Mr. Merchant, thank you very much for taking time and joining us. You've obviously
Thank you very much,
written a
Sanjeev.
political book, and also you've written something on your biography of Aditya Birla and Rajiv Gandhi. So you have a very interesting perspective. So again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Mr. Merchant, the way I'll start maybe more with a comment about the book. When I looked at the book and I read it cover to cover, was that it's probably one of the most objective book that I've come across. And if I look at the current narrative, more especially in the media, even in social media, I think it's very polarized. And maybe if you can just talk a bit about that, your thought process, what kind of has driven you to write something like this?
Yeah, Sanjeev, I think to begin with, as I mentioned in the book, when I met Mr. Modi for the first time, just over 11 years ago, he had requested that I write his biography because there's so many controversial aspects to his role as the Chief Minister of Gujarat. And he wanted an objective appraisal. He'd read my biography of Rajiv Gandhi and of Aditya Birla, and he asked me whether I do it. And I very politely said no, because to do one prime ministerial biography in a lifetime, I think is enough. Otherwise, you get typecast a little bit. I didn't want that. Being an editor and a journalist and a media startup entrepreneur, I wanted to ensure that the neutrality that I'd propagated throughout my life was maintained. So I told him, Mr. Modi, that look, even though I can't do it, I'd like to, but I can't for the reasons I've outlined. It would be a good idea to get a foreigner who has no skin in the game, as it were, in politics, in terms of left or right and the polarization that you mentioned briefly. So I contacted my friend in London, Andy Marino, who's a PhD in English literature, and he agreed to do it. He came to India. I introduced him to Mr. Modi, several meetings, but Mr. Modi still insisted that I be the co-publisher and to supervise some of the work. So again, I acceded to that, and along with HarperCollins and myself, we co-published the book. But I told Andy, who actually wrote it, that look, don't mention my name in your acknowledgements. And he was very angry. He said, no, I'm going to mention you. I said, no, it doesn't look nice. You've done the job. I've only helped in co-publishing. So anyway, so that happened. And as far as writing this particular book is concerned, for 10 years, I kept, my counsel, and Mr. Modi has been kind enough to follow me on all my social media platforms, but he knows that I like to keep arm's length. And though we've had many conversations, the point is that I always try to make sure that I'm neutral. So when this book idea came across to me about 2 or 3 years ago, and I started writing it, the whole purpose was to look at the 10 years of Mr. Modi. And there were 4 basic aspects of the book, very briefly. Number 1 was the performance of Mr. Modi in 10 years. across domains. Second was the India, the acronym India, INDIA, opposition, and how that would perform, and challenge that that could pose to Mr. Modi in a potential third term. The third was India itself and how it has developed in the context of the past 10 years. And the fourth, of course, was overall Mr. Modi as a leader, what kind of leadership he's provided, and so on. So the book was then split into 31 chapters, as you saw, 10 chapters, 31 sections, and it then became a very complete appraisal of India, its development, the opposition, the united opposition, the challenge it could pose, Mr. Modi's performance in the past 10 years, and of course, the actual central theme, which is the Lok Sabha election of 2024 and the kind of outcome that might take place.
Great. Actually, let's kind of back off a bit, and you while you mentioned about the biography and so on, of course, so you have a very interesting perspective on Prime Minister Modi, as you said. In fact, I think you even wrote to an open letter to Mr. Advani in 2013 that why Mr. Modi is the best prime ministerial candidate. So I think that was also pretty interesting.
Yes, Ajit,
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
No, so I'm just saying that you have a great perspective on Prime Minister Modi. So maybe help us decode him a bit from your perspective. Like, how do you see
Mr. Modi is a very interesting character, actually, in the sense that there are very few parallels in the world of someone who's come from such humble origins, a person who was not in frontline politics till 7. He was at the RSS, and he became a member of the BJP only in 1987. And within a short period of 14 years, he was the chief minister of Gujarat. So the kind of climb that he's had from very humble origins, and of course, there also I might digress that at the age of 17, he left his home and went to the Himalayas, spent 2 years there. I think that also made him the man he is today in terms of his philosophy, in terms of the way he looks at things, his Zen-like calm, etc., etc. He also worked from the age of 19 when he came back from the Himalayas, 2 years in the Himalayas, 17 to 19. When he came back, he worked for the RSS. He'd left his home and he did, menial jobs, washing clothes, cleaning the bathrooms, etc., etc., which is why the sanitation and the water on tap and all the other things for the poor that he is so focused on throughout his first 2 terms, that comes from his own experience. From the age of 19, right up to the age of 37, in 1987, when he was seconded to the BJP. And then, of course, he rose quite quickly. So to answer your question on what really makes him tick, I think it's that he's very grounded because of his experience growing up, Himalayas, RSS, from the age of 19 to the age of 37, so nearly 2 decades. And then, of course, he was parachuted into the BJP, and then he handled the Bhuj earthquake in the year 2000, 2001, and did a good job. And that's why he actually caught the eye of the leadership of the BJP, and he became the chief minister. So as Mr. Advani is concerned, the Rath Yatra of 1990, which brought the BJP up in political terms, that was handled largely by Mr. Modi in 1990. He was 3 years old in the BJP, and yet he handled that, and he became close to Mr. Advani. But after he became chief minister, and the riots took place in 2002, and the very famous Vajpayee-Modi meeting just after the riots, in which Vajpayee is said to have said, in fact, he did say, Raj Dharma Rakhna Chahiye, etc. And then people cut off, the media cut off the response of Modi, which is that, yes, I am actually doing Raj Dharma, because we're trying to get the riots in control. And then Vajpayee nodded, saying, "Ha, kar rahe hai." So that last 2 points were not relayed in the media at all. That's a polarization that had already begun in 2002. Because by then, people had realized that Modi could be a potential threat to the Indian order, which had been largely Congress dominated to men. So, it was throughout this period from 2002 and after you won the December, the 2002 assembly election, won the 2007 election, that's when Sonia Gandhi spotted his potential threat electorally. And she said, she called him Modka Saudagar. And then after 2012 December, when he won his third assembly election in Gujarat, then of course it was quite clear that he was the rising star in the BJP. And that is when I met him a year ago, but that is approximately when I decided to write that open letter to Mr. Advani to tell him, because Mr. Advani, there's a context to it. In one of my media startups, the first media startup, which I started when I was 25, quite recklessly, after 4 years with the Times of India and India Today, and not joining my dad's business, which is slightly reckless. But the first media startup which I did, we had Mr. L.K. Advani as a columnist in one of the magazines for almost 15 or 20 years. So I got to know him well. We had Mr. Madhu Dandavate, I.K. Gujral, etc., as our columnists, along with Shashi Tharoor, Henry Kissinger. So we were very unpolarized and continue to be. But because L.K. Advani and I had that professional relationship, I respected him a lot, and he sent his column in regularly. So after 15 years, I got to know him a little bit, and I felt that in 2013, when the prime ministerial candidate for the BJP was being chosen, I believed that Mr. Modi was the best candidate. If the BJP wanted to win the election, there were only two candidates, Mr. Advani or Mr. Modi. Now, Mr. Advani, as I've written in the book, I believe, could have been a better, but in different circumstances. In the circumstances that were there in 2013, policy paralysis, high inflation, low GDP growth, and corruption charges, Anna Hazare movement. And I'd met Mr. Modi a year or two ago, before all of that. So in 2013, I decided to write an open letter to Mr. Advani, telling him very respectfully that, look, there's this controversy. It's you, Mr. Modi, can't decide. There's a conclave in Goa in which, the decision has to be made. And that's why the open letter was written. And Modi, the campaign head. And then 2 or 3 months later, in September of 2013, after a bit of a push from the RSS, Mr. Bhagwat, Mr. Modi was declared the official prime ministerial candidate, much to the displeasure of Mr. Advani. But Mr. Advani is a sporting man. He's a very good man. And I think he's taken it quite sportingly, even though he felt a little let down.
So, if you see where Mr. Modi is, if you see the, most of the polls that are coming out, he seems to getting more and more popular, or at least he's maintained his popularity. If you even look at Margaret Thatcher, in a third term, her popularity went down. So we have a very interesting phenomenon where after 10 years, I think his approval rating is probably still at its high. What has he done right, according to, and where can he improve?
Yeah, I think, Sanjeev, as far as what he's done right, I think, first of all, the digitalization of the economy, the GST, etc., Aadhaar, UPI, ONDC, the entire digital public stack that we have, that has been, I think, hugely successful. People do not need now middlemen who used to siphon off money, the direct benefit transfer, the DBT, make sure that the money goes, the food subsidies and all the other money that is meant to go to the poor actually goes to the poor. That has led, I think, to a lot of people regarding him as someone who really cares for them. So the digitalization of the economy has been a big plus. The second is infrastructure. The incredible what Mr. Nitin Gadkari has done in terms of highways and other ministries have done in terms of ports, airports, sea terminals, bridges, tunnels, and at the line of actual control, where our infrastructure was rudimentary for decades. That's only in the past 5 or 10 years, particularly the past 5 years, after Doklam, that our border infrastructure with the BRO, the Border Roads Organization, that has improved tremendously. And even though the Chinese have built infrastructure, we are catching up with them. And according to our top army commanders, we will catch up completely with them in 3 or 4 years. So I think infrastructure, both in terms of civilian infrastructure and military infrastructure, has been a big plus for Mr. Modi in terms of why he's popular. The third, of course, is geopolitics. He's played his cards astutely. He's done a transactional deal with America and Quad and the West on the one hand, with the East on the other, with an Act East policy. He's been able to build bridges with the Arab world, the Muslim world, in the Gulf, and the kind of protocols that he's signed with the Saudis, with the United Arab Emirates, and many other Muslim countries. That has taken the argument away from the fact that he's a communal person. Because if you were communal, you wouldn't be dealing with Muslim majority countries in the way that Mr. Modi has done. So yes, geopolitically, the West with Europe, to an extent, we'll be seeing an FTA with the United Kingdom in the coming weeks, I think, and with East Asia, including right down to the South Pacific, with Australasia keeping the Chinese and Pakistan threats in mind. So geopolitically, he's done a good job. I think these are the achievements. And of course, the fourth is welfare benefits, water on tap, last mile, village electrification, gas cylinders, food subsidies, health insurance, up to 5 lakhs. I think all of these, and there are 100 schemes that have been done by him. All of these affect, the middle class and the poor. So these 4 areas, I think, are those Modi's performed very well, and that is that's contributed to his continuing popularity, which, as you said, in the third term, with anti-incumbency being normally very, very prominent, that anti-incumbency at the parliamentary level may not be so strong.
Right. And where do you think he can improve, or what are the areas where he has not done as great?
I think there are many, Sanjeev, where he can improve. One is that he needs to bring in more talent into the government. In the first term, there wasn't that much lateral talent. In the second term, there has been, with Vaishnav and Chandrasekhar and Jai Shankar, by far the most impressive cabinet minister we have. So all these people are not political people. The one was a chip designer and the founder of BPL Mobile many decades ago, Rajiv Chandrasekhar. Vaishnav, of course, the IAS man, and Jai Shankar is an IFS man. So that kind of lateral talent, but much more needs to be done. And I think in the third term, if he gets it, he will bring in much more kind of corporate lateral talent. Don't forget that Jai Shankar, after he retired as foreign secretary, was in the Tatas for almost a year, and he was picked up from the Tatas effectively to be foreign minister in 2019. So much more of that is expected. But lack of talent at the moment is something that needs improvement. Apart from that, of course, there is the whole question of deification. Modi is India, India is Modi. And as we've heard, and as you probably have heard, Modi likes constructive criticism, but he likes it to be done in private. In public, he's a little thin-skinned and doesn't like criticism in public. But he gets a lot of it. He gets not only criticism 24/7 from the opposition and a part of the media, he gets abuse all the time. So one would imagine that he's got a thick skin, but he is sensitive to criticism and he rebuts it quite a lot. So I think that definitely is something, the deification, which is a consequence of lack of talent. Too many yes men, too many people who don't disagree with him, not enough dissent. We all know the old cliche that the smartest people surround themselves with people smarter than themselves. Now, Mr. Modi, I think, wants to do that, but there's something which is blocking that. If he can remove that block, whether it's his own block or it's from the ecosystem, I think things will improve tremendously. Apart from that, there's also the whole thing of protectionism. Make in India excellent. We need to build a manufacturing industry. We need to build in India. So that's good. But protectionism with import duties and all that, and we've seen the rollback on laptops and all of that, which was a terrible decision. And now it's gone into just monitoring mechanism for the next 1 year, from being an outright license Raj thing. So they said later, no, we never mentioned the word license Raj. Anyway, so that kind of protectionism is not great. Then there's compliances. Again, regulation is very good. I think all our regulators, whether it's SEBI or the RBI, have to be congratulated for being very good. And SEBI in particular, even though there's a lot of criticism on SEBI, the fact that we are on a T+1 protocol in terms of settlements, and now we would be moving to T+0 real-time settlements next year, which is the first in the world. I mean, that's a kind of technological excellence that we have. So while SEBI is doing all of that very well, over-regulation, where it's a sort of nanny state regulations state, that's not good. So I'm very much in favor of hard regulation, but light touch regulation. Sometimes we have too hard a touch in our regulation. And compliances are also very, very harsh. And for small and medium enterprises, the burden can be significant. And finally, I think in terms of polarization, we know that India has been a victim of polarization for decades. It was Muslim first appeasement, and then there was a reaction to that after 50 or 60 years of Nehruvian appeasement. The codification of Hindu personal law happened in 1955, but Muslim personal law hasn't been touched. Now, there's obviously a case for reform of the Muslim community, and indeed of other communities, including HUF. I mean, I'm all for complete revamp and codification of all personal laws, whatever the consequences. And I think that is something which has been there for decades. The appeasement of the Muslim community, it hasn't helped them. It hasn't empowered Muslims, and therefore it's been a failed project. Now, what Mr. Modi is trying to do is he's saying, look, when I send food subsidies in bags, or when the village gets electricity, or the village gets water on tap, for the first time ever, toilets, etc., all of that doesn't come with Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Jew, Sikh written on it. That is genuine secularism, because it's completely religion neutral. And that's a kind of non-polarization that we need to have. However, because of the decades of polarization, of Muslim polarization that we've had, there is this reservoir of resentment within the Hindu community, among moderate Hindus as well, not the fringe, the moderate Hindus. Look, we've been taken for a ride, first by the Mughal Empire, then by the British Empire, and then by the Nehruvian Empire. Now, we finally got a man, because in Vajpayee was not quite the man they wanted with 182 seats. He was more in the Congress mold. But now we finally got a man 9.5 years ago who actually is someone who can look after our interests after decades and centuries of being treated as second-class citizens in our own country. And that is the appeal of Mr. Modi to the moderate majority community. That explains to a large extent why anti-incumbency at the parliamentary level may not be as strong despite 10 years, in which we've had two black swan events, the Ukraine war, COVID-19, etc. And now, of course, Israel and Hamas. Despite that, we managed to trundle along quite well with a near 7% GDP growth rate, which I believe can go to 8% in the future. So that, and finally, the last two things on which improvement can happen is on communications. I think the BJP has to be more proactive and less reactive, whether it's Canada or it's a Congress or anyone else. Whether it's Canada or we've just got a message saying I should be a little louder, but I'm not sure if I can be. I'll try. Anyway, the point is that whether it's Canada or the Congress, the communications of the BJP is very poor, and they've got to have more talent and be more proactive in the future.
Sure. Thanks. So you kind of mentioned, and I'm taking up your point from there, that in the second term, we've had three technocrats, so to say, or bureaucrats who've kind of become ministers and doing a much better job. How is the second term different from first term in a very broad sense, according to you?
Sanjay, the first term was very different because he inherited a broken economy. As we said, high inflation, low GDP growth rate policy, paralysis, corruption across the board. So, he said that he should have actually published a white paper on the state of the economy, and he didn't do it only because he didn't want to turn off investors, global investors. If they had realized the state of the economy in 2014, then that there would have been hell to pay. So that is the only reason why he didn't publish a white paper on the broken state of the economy. So the first term was really used up in setting things right. The second term, despite these two black swan events, three of them now with Israel and Hamas, despite that, it's been different because now he is consolidating and taking things forward in terms of all the schemes, the infra, the digitalization, and what we've talked about already. So that makes it completely different from the first term. The third term will, however, be one of turbocharging the economy, turbocharging development, and making India, as he said time and again, moving it towards not only the third largest economy in the world by 2029, the end of the third term, but a developed country in overall all indices by 2047.
Right. So before we move on to the elections part of it, or 2021, one last question. You've also talked about three facets of Prime Minister Modi. He has three different personalities that kind of come out. Maybe if you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, I think, Sanjeev, what really Mr. Modi has perfected is that in order to get votes, and ultimately a politician is there not only to do public service and improve the quality of everyone's lives, but he's there to win elections. So he's been able to compartmentalize himself to achieve that objective, which is that on the election rallies, when he's on the stump at election rallies, he is a hard Hindutva warrior and talking about, things that would appeal to the majority community. When he's at the global stage, whether it's the G20 or BRICS or any other forum, the Quad, he's the global statesman with a measured tone and a statesman-like bearing. So he has been able to compartmentalize those two aspects. And then the third aspect, which is compartmentalized, is when he's with the poor, where he is devotional, he prostrates himself in front of priests and goes to temples and does a lot of devotional work, which gives him a saintly image. So I think these three compartmentalization, because India is a very religious country, 90% of Indians are religious. So he does play to that, because that has an emotional connect. The global statesman has also a great connect electorally, so that makes people feel, India is now a voice that is heard with respect from the world after being a colony for not just 190 years under the British, but for 200 years under other invaders. So that helps. And of course, at election rallies, he appeals directly as a Hindutva warrior.
Right.
So I think that compartmentalization is aimed at electoral benefit, and well, we'll see soon enough how it works.
Sure. So let's move to the election part. And, I think, of course, it's probably impossible to predict anything, but let's try and what I'll try and do with you is try and build a framework that we can use to at least analyze where things are heading and so on. So I think I think we'll start with 2019. The backdrop of 2019 was very similar to where we are today in some ways, where in 2019 BJP lost the three major state elections, and it looks like it's similar situation right now. But then things changed in the central election, right? Especially there was a lot of split voting, in the sense that people voted differently for state and differently at the center. Rajasthan, Delhi, classic examples where it was like huge swing. Where do you think we are compared to, let's say, 2019?
I think Sanjeev, we are very close actually to 2018, right, where the BJP lost three important state elections: Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, and Madhya Pradesh.
Yeah.
Madhya Pradesh, they clawed back through defections and Jyotiraditya Scindia and all that, but basically they lost. And in January of 2019, most opinion polls had given the BJP in the 2019 Lok Sabha election, the prediction was 250 seats. I had done my own calculation, and I published it in my electoral math series in various columns, giving the BJP between 240 and 250 seats in January of 2019. Then Pulwama happened in February, and then Balakot, and that changed the arithmetic and the chemistry completely. And the BJP ended up with 303, and the NDA with 350 odd. So there's no question that in 2019, there was an element of luck that Mr. Modi had. But in 2023 now, even if the 5 elections go against Mr. Modi, and Telangana, of course, is a write-off as far as the BJP is concerned, and so is Mizoram. I mean, Mizoram, I don't know. But as far as Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh is also likely to go to the Congress. But as far as Rajasthan and MP are concerned, it's a toss-up. It could go either way. It could be 1-all, it could be 2-0, it could be 0-2. We've seen the kind of work that's happening today with ED raids on Gaylord's people. We've seen all kinds of things happening in Madhya Pradesh. People who were in the BJP have left and joined the Congress. There are other angles of the BSP and what kind of splitting of votes that might take place if they enter. We've seen the dissent or dissensions between the Samajwadi Party and the Congress in Madhya Pradesh. But there's definitely going to be a slightly difficult environment in these 5 state elections, which is going to lead to the India opposition, if they win even one of Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, which is very likely, do quite well in Telangana, even if BRS wins again. And if they hang on to Chhattisgarh, which is very likely, I think that will create a momentum for the opposition. But we all know that the parliamentary elections are very different from state elections. And even in Rajasthan, one of the other states, Rajasthan, in the 2019 Lok Sabha election, the BJP got 59% vote share. But in the state assembly election, just a few months before that, in 2018, November, December of 2018, it got 39%. So there was a 20% jump in this difficult situation. And even taking the Balakot thing into account, parliamentary elections are different. So at the same time, it's not going to be an easy election. It'll be challenging. I'm not going to make a prediction, but as I've said earlier, it is an 80-20 election. Some people are saying, no, it's 100-0. Mr. Modi, it's a given. I would disagree. I'd say that the opposition, if they do their seat sharing efficiently, have a chance of converting this into a hung assembly, 250 seats for the BJP. and very few allies, except for Ajit Pawar and the Shinde Shiv Sena. They haven't got any allies. So it'll be tough. But at the same time, Mr. Modi is the consummate campaigner. And between January, the Ram Mandir being inaugurated on the 22nd January, um, you know, even though to an extent the Ram Mandir is priced in, literally, to its vote share, the BJP does have, I think, and Mr. Modi certainly can pull this one through. Not easily, but with a lot of hard work, he'll probably win the election. But it'll need a lot of hard work in the next 4 or 5 months.
Sure. I think let me dig deeper into some of the things that you talked about. And let's start with the split voting part. So in 2004, Vajpayee did not get a split vote, and I guess that's probably the reason he lost, despite the India shining and so on. And you talked about PM Modi as a figure, how he's kind of come out. Is that the reason why the split vote situation is because of him as a one person, or is there something else also playing?
No, but by split vote, what exactly do you mean?
When I mean what you mentioned, like 39% in state election versus 59%.
The differential.
That exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I think it is Modi's personality. I mentioned it earlier that Modi represents to the majority community, the moderates, and that is a silent majority in the majority, which had been disappointed by so many years of post-independence policy making, as far as their interests were concerned, that they finally got a man who is their man. And I think because of that, there's been a psychological impact. And if you talk to people, whether it's the poor, the middle class, or even industrialists, the reaction is the same. That here is a person who actually works for us 24 hours a day, no family, no dynasty, no vested interest. Anand Mahindra, if I may say so, went on record to say that, and he deals with so many different businesses, that there is zero corruption in Delhi at the central level. There might be corruption at the state level. There will be corruption at the civic level, and that will take a long time to end. But as he said, and he should know, that the old thing of bags of cash being given to ministers, all of that is now not there. So I think people do realize this, and that is partly the reason why, apart from the man who looks after our interests syndrome, that is partly no corruption, a man after our own hearts, etc. All of that has led to the differential between parliamentary and state elections, which was not there under Mr. Vajpayee.
Good. So also let's just break up some of the key elements that people look for. And you talked about geopolitics as one of the factors. Where do you think we are? And also, sorry, just to add to that, one of the point is, I don't remember, at least I've been watching Indian politics for so long, I don't remember Chandrayaan being such a big event ever that every household is watching Chandrayaan happening. And
Sanjeev, the thing is that I don't want to repeat what Arun Shuri said when he came here in 2014 and waited to be made the finance minister, and did not get that. And then he went back disappointed. And he said that this is a government which makes headlines. It's a headline-making government. And there's no question that Mr. Modi utilizes, and I don't want to use the word exploits, but he utilizes every opportunity, whether it's Chandrayaan or it's a G20 event, anything, or the Ram Mandir thing next January, or the new parliamentary building opening. He uses every single opportunity to promote brand Modi and brand India, because now the two have merged. It's like Indira Gandhi India, now it's Modi India. Now, I've criticized that in the book, but we are a different kind of country, and you can't equate India with any other country in the world in terms of our religiosity, in terms of our hierarchy, in terms of our focus on education, in terms of our wanting validation from all over the world, and in terms of our obsession with ranking, whether it's in cricket or it's in, joint entrance exams. Rank, rank, rank. Nowhere in the world are Puri and Brand India coming together. It's not likely that that would happen in any other democracy in the world, because there are only three kinds of countries. One is our democracies, whether it's in Europe, America, India, etc. The second are these monarchies, the sheikdoms, etc., in the Middle East and so on. And the third are the quasi democracies. So in no other kind of system would we have a particular leader in a democracy who is so completely aligned with and identified with the country. And that is what Mr. Modi has managed to do. And he does it deliberately because he knows the country. He's been in the Himalayas, wandering around. Not a single meal in those 700 days did he share with the same family. Every single day, a different meal with a different person. So he knows India better than all of us put together.
Right. What about economics? You think, especially, would you be worried, right now, for example, when we hear consumer companies talking about demand at the lower end seems to be pretty poor, which kind of suggesting that, maybe the poorer India is not feeling very good. Would you worry about that from an election perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously worry about it, but one thing I like to point out, Sanjeev, is that we tend to worry too much and then not do enough about what we are worrying about.
Right.
Now, poor demand in the rural areas is cyclical, and it's due to the long effect of COVID. It's due to the trading disruptions in the Ukraine war. It's due to many other factors. So I mean, what we really should be worrying about is how this cycle can be turned. Now, the market has gone down in the past 2 or 3 days by a large amount, but we shouldn't be worried about that at all. It's gone down because American Treasury bonds yields have gone up, and we know what that means. So this is temporary. Even the IT companies that have gone down, that's temporary. There's going to be a huge amount of increase in AI-related IT work that our top IT companies are going to get. So we've got to keep that in mind that A, it's cyclical, and B, we've got to work on how to improve demand. And I think demand is already rising a little bit, not only due to the festive season, but generally rural demand, which has been static, is beginning to pick up a little bit. And a lot of people worry about our stock market being overpriced. I completely disagree. We're expensive. America is expensive too. But nowhere in the world are there 500 or 1,000 top companies, which is what FPIs and Indian retail buyers usually focus on. Nowhere in the world are these 500,000 top corporates, which have a top line growth of 15% a year, and with fairly low taxation, 22% corporate tax. And most of them end up paying, with various other means, not much more than 15 or 18% tax. So I think the fact that our corporate growth rates of the Indian corporate sector is 15% and above, bottom line and top line, is what is driving our market PEs. So I don't think we should be worried about that or about demand. It's going to pick up. India is a very, very untapped market, a very underdeveloped market. The kind of potential in housing, infra, why are people like Morgan Stanley and every other company, from Apple to Morgan Stanley or JP Morgan Chase, why are all of them coming to India in a queue? Because they know that this is the only free, democratic, large market in the world that's left. Europe is completely saturated, and they've got their own social problems. America is also saturated to a large extent, and their problems. And we've seen what happened with 22 people killed in Maine just a few hours ago. So America is as polarized or more so than India. Then there's the Russia-China axis, which is developing. So there's no place to go. China is not a place you can go to now for American and European firms because of the laws which say that if you share data, you will be held criminally responsible and you can be jailed. So in China, if you're an American company and you just send your own data to your headquarters in Illinois, you will be actually violating Chinese law. So, and apart from the geopolitical problem between America and Europe and China, this is a major problem. So I think Indian markets, both consumer, rural, and stock, are all going to go up in the future.
I'll just come to one more aspect. This whole caste census thing that is kind of become a debate right now. You think that has any role to play in the election? Because, as you said, you talked about religion, but the third dimension to the religion is the caste side, right?
Yeah.
What do you think is how would that?
So religion and caste are perennial in our country. I'm very opposed. I made my point clear years and years and years ago that the caste system, of course, we all know is terrible, but I've always believed that, first of all, the caste census is a very bad idea. Secondly, I think that reservations should move very quickly towards economically weak sections, the EWS, and not based on caste. Now, that's an unpopular view, but it's a view I've held for decades, and I've written about this, that we should not say that, oh, he's OBC or he's Brahmin or he's this or that. Because there are as many poor Brahmins, not as many, but there are many, many poor Brahmins and kayasths, so-called upper castes, as there are scheduled castes. So I think to have this whole thing, and we've seen this in Maharashtra, Maratha thing, everybody gets a reservation. So ultimately you'll have 70% reservation. But the people who need reservation, who need a leg up, are those who are economically poor. And you can identify them, certain threshold income, household income. Give them, if at all, reservations. Give them a leg up. And affirmative action should be for the economically weaker sections, not caste-based. But in India, caste is a reality like religion. We are a religious country. We are a caste country. Everyone talks about caste all the time. And it's something that you just have to live with. But I frankly think it's something that we should live down.
Do you think it'll play a role in the election this time?
Yeah, of course it will, Sanjeev. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the caste that Nitish Kumar began. That's what VP Singh started in Mandal in 1990. I mean, he's the one, VP Singh, and I wrote a bad leader. Why? Because he divided the country with the Mandal Commission. And now Nitish Kumar is reviving it, all for their own personal gain. They don't care about, uplifting the poor, the scheduled caste. They don't care. What they care about is uplifting themselves. So the caste will play a prominent role, and that's why Mr. Modi, even though he also doesn't really believe in this whole thing, has been forced over all these years to go on about OBCs, and that he's an OBC himself. And now he is trying to fight the caste census thing, which Rahul Gandhi is playing up in order to make OBCs feel that, if there's more quotas for us to education and jobs, then it's good for us, and therefore we vote Congress, which is why Rahul has taken this so much to heart, what Nitish Kumar said. But he made that one mistake when he said that the higher the population in Hindi, the more benefits he should get, and that was that without him knowing it is directed against Muslims because they're only 15%. So Muslims are upset about that, but they'll of course still vote for Congress because they hate Modi so much.
Let's talk about the opposition. So India, do you think it's a reality? This whole combination that UPA's successor, so to say, the India Alliance. Do you think this is going to survive with all these contradictions that they have?
Yeah, I think it's going to survive. There are many contradictions, but I think it's going to survive because it's a life-saving coalition for all of them. They know that if they don't come together, then Modi's going to walk through. Because if there's no seat sharing, and if there's split votes, in states like Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh and many other states, then it's going to be a walkover for Mr. Modi. The only way in which they can do something and stop the Modi juggernaut is by getting together. So just out of self-preservation, they will stick together. Like Akhilesh Yadav and Kamal Nath, the little spat they had over Madhya Pradesh. Immediately, within a day or two, a top Congress leader phoned Akhilesh Yadav and said, no, we don't have any problems with you. And whatever Kamal Nath said about, Akhilesh, forget about him. All that you don't worry about, we are with you. And Akhilesh immediately softened his stand. So I got a call from someone very high up. It's a very hierarchy-based country. There's a caste system even in who calls who and who sits where and who comes to a particular function first and who comes second. So in this hierarchy thing, he got a call from somebody at the top in the Congress, and he was emotionally completely taken aback by that and very happy. So he said, no problem at all. In UP, we'll cooperate.
Right. So assuming that happens and they've come together, last time NDA won about 45%, I think, of the vote share, which is actually almost as high as what Nehru used to get in his times. And, after that,
That's right.
these kind of vote shares. But assuming that it's like a one-on-one versus, pretty much BJP, as you said, there are hardly any allies left. So BJP versus India.
You see, Sanjeev, it's a little difficult because in 2019, the Shiv Sena and the JDU were important parts of the NDA alliance. They're both gone. So that 37% that the BJP got and the 45% that the NDA got, there was a large portion of Shiv Sena and JDU. But at the same time, because there was Shiv Sena and because there was JDU in Maharashtra and Bihar, the BJP would have liked to. So that also curtailed the amount of seats it got. Now, without the JDU there, because in Bihar they're fighting the election basically alone with one or two minor small allies, they'll be able to contest virtually all the 40 seats in Bihar. Now, will that help them against the RJD-JDU combination? It's difficult to say. In Maharashtra, again, you've got Ajit Pawar and Shinde's Shiv Sena. Will they be able to trump the Uddhav Thackeray Shiv Sena and the Sharad Pawar NCP? Again, very difficult to say. But ultimately, what's going to happen is that, as I said earlier, the three states that will make or break, in a sense, the BJP in 2024 are Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Gujarat. Between these three states, if Yogi Adityanath can swing things through, and it doesn't matter that the Congress and the SP will work together, because Congress is very, very small. It hardly got, in the assembly elections, it got 2.33% of the vote. So SP is basically going to work against the BJP. It's going to be a one-on-one fight with the Congress just piggybacking. If Yogi Adityanath can repeat the performance of the past, he got 62 seats last time. He got 68 in 2014. He needs to get at least 68 to 70 again this time around. 26 out of 26 in Gujarat is a given. Maharashtra is the big question mark, as I just mentioned a moment ago. But I think the BJP and the two allies, Ajit Pawar and Shinde, need to get between them at least 40 seats. Now, between these three, if that happens, 70, 40, 26, that goes to 136 arithmetically. And that's half the majority total straight away. And then you go to the Hindi heartland, where you have Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Delhi, and Haryana. Now, among these seats, again, I don't want to go bore you with the mathematics, but I reckon that they can get about 80 seats there. So 80 plus 136, it's 216 so far. In these, and Delhi is included in that, in these 7 plus 3, 10 states. Then you go to the east, Jharkhand, Odisha, West Bengal, and Jharkhand. There again, my calculation is that they'll do well in Odisha, in Jharkhand, badly in West Bengal, um, and, um, and Bihar, of course, and well in Bihar, reasonably well. So Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Odisha, these 4 states, 50 seats, 50 plus 216, 266. Then you go down to the northeast, rather up to the northeast. There Assam predominate, and total 25 seats are available. 15 is what I reckon they'll get. So 281, 266 to 15, 281. And then you go down to the south, where apart from Karnataka, the BJP will draw a blank. Nothing in Tamil Nadu, nothing much in Telangana, maybe 1 or 2, nothing in Andhra Pradesh with YSR so strong, and nothing in Kerala. So 15 to 20 seats in Karnataka with JDS. Total 301, 281 plus 20. So that is the pathway that they have to ensure. Mr. Modi knows this, to get to 301. And if seat sharing is done efficiently by India, the only hope is to cut the BJP down in Uttar Pradesh. They can't do it in Gujarat, to cut them down in Maharashtra, and to cut them down in the Hindi heartland. Rajasthan, where there's a complete sweep. Madhya Pradesh, where there was a virtual sweep, 28 out of 29 seats, 2019. Cut them down in these places. If they can do that, because in the south, they have nothing anyway, and northeast, Assam will give them good seats. And in the east, they'll probably get the 40 or 50. So Hindi heartland is where they need to cut them down. And by how much? By 30 or 40 seats overall? 270, 275. So worst case scenario, 270, 275, plus Eknath Shinde, plus Ajit Pawar. So 285, 290, worst case scenario. Best case scenario, 301, plus Shinde, plus Pawar, plus maybe a little bit of TDP, and maybe a little bit of Paswan. So maybe 310 or 315. So that is the maximum I can decode at the moment.
Great. So, Mr. Machin, that actually almost sounds that, I think BJP looks like will make it, or NDA will make it. There's a very high probability. Let's assume for a minute that, these two are much lower than majority, and both the alliances, or BJP versus India, is closer to, let's say, 240. What role do you think KCR or a Naveen Patnaik or a Jagan Reddy could play? You think, where could they stand? Because these are the 3 important guys who have not allied with either of them, right? So
yeah, I think KCR, Naveen Patnaik, and Jagan Mohan Reddy.
Yeah,
these are 3 actually who are not aligned. And they're the ones who have maybe 10 seats in Odisha, 20 odd seats in Andhra Pradesh. YSR is very strong there, and KCR, I don't know. I mean, out of 17, he might, the Congress is doing well, so is the BJP. Let's say 10 seats there. So between the 3 of them, they'd have about 40 seats, and they would go with whoever they think is going to be a soft touch. After all, they're only concerned about their state. Naveen Patnaik would lean towards Modi. YSR would lean towards Modi. And KCR would lean towards the Congress. But after the harsh rhetoric exchange between Rahul Gandhi and KTR, KCR's son, who's a returnee from the United States, reverse migration, I think after that, even but a 240-seat kind of situation for the BJP, and allies of Shinde, etc., giving him 250, to get 30, 40 seats from these people would make him a weak prime minister, comparatively speaking. But on the other hand, if these 3 people that you mentioned go with the Congress-led INDIA, then it's incumbent on one of the parties, and the only one who can get more than 100 seats is the Congress. So the TMC can't get more than 30, 33 seats. The DMK can't get much more than 34, 35 seats. There's no one else. JDU can't get more than 20 seats, if at all. And that's it. There are no other major allies. The left parties are virtually done. So if the Congress gets over 100 seats, then they'll use it as an anchor party, and they'll get someone like a Deve Gowda or an I.K. Gujral, who's harmless and who will listen to them, and then they'll pull the strings from behind, and you'll have a UF government type situation, 1996, 1998, where the Congress supported Deve Gowda and I.K. Gujral from behind, but pulled them down in 11 months, one after the other, 11 months, gone. And that led to Vajpayee coming in 1998. So that would be a pretty bad scenario, but it would mean that the Congress would have to get 100 seats to form an anchor party.
Right.
And that, from the 52 seats they've got, and with all the seat sharing that's going to go on, to get towards 100, very unlikely. The maximum they can hope for is in the early 70s, 72, 73.
Right. Great. So I guess we are run out of time, but last line from you in terms of, if you were to put a probability of 272 plus today for BJP, what would you say?
Look, I'd say, Sanjeev, that on a conservative side, it would be 80% for Modi to get more than 270 seats. If I was being a little more adventurous, and if the chemistry works out well in 2024, the first quarter of 2024, then the chances are 85 to 90%. I wouldn't go beyond that, because in politics, to say 100% is completely a fool, living in a fool's paradise. And even Mr. Modi would not want that. So anything between 80 and 85%.
Right. I think, thank you so much, Mr. Machan, for your time. We could have gone on and on. There are too many things I wanted to discuss, but I guess we ran out of time. So
Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you very much.
And yeah, for everybody who's listened, I think I urge you guys, please read the book. I think it's very, very fascinating.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.